The sky over Nevada cracked open like cheap drywall. A streak of emerald light tore the clouds asunder, and the air itself hummed with static. People gathered outside gas stations, diners, and rusted trailer homes, shading their eyes from the light above the desert. Phones came out. Live streams started. The air tasted like burnt copper. At precisely 2:41 p.m., the first ship touched down sleek, obsidian, and indifferent to gravity. It didn't land. It hovered. A dozen more followed, forming a perfect circle several hundred feet above the Mojave. Then came the voice, amplified, cold, and impossibly clear. Humans of Earth, you will now surrender. Inside a cluttered, underfunded emergency response trailer 20 miles from the landing site, Everett Sloan spit out his coffee. "What the hell?" he muttered, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. He leaned forward, staring at the grainy feed on the monitor, a live drone shot from a nearby Air Force recon team. The ships hovered like statues of sleek obsidian, no visible propulsion, no landing gear, no insignia, just... There, the voice continued. This planet now falls under the dominion of her sovereign eminence, Queen Virellia of the Harken Empire. Resistance is futile. Compliance will ensure minimal restructuring. Everett, a former Army combat medic turned disaster response coordinator, reached for the radio. His hand hovered for a moment. No protocol existed for alien surrender orders. He pressed the button anyway. "Command, this is Station Echo 9er. Are we taking this seriously? Static." Then a voice. "Echo 9er, this is Command. We are treating this as a real-time incursion. Sit tight, eyes open, await further instruction." Everett leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Of all the days for the vending machine to be out of Snickers, by nightfall the world had changed. New York's mayor went live on every platform, urging calm. European leaders issued statements. China scrambled jets. The Vatican prayed. And in the desert, the ships remained silent, unwavering like gods awaiting tribute. On the third day, Queen Virellia descended. She emerged from the largest ship, tall, silver-skinned, with a crown that shimmered like liquid stars. Her eyes were dark pools, unreadable. Dozens of humans watched from a safe zone behind armored Humvees and concrete barriers. Among them stood Everett, freshly deputized as civilian liaison due to his prior combat experience and his unfortunate proximity to the landing zone. He watched as Virellia approached the temporary dais erected by the Pentagon. Her guards flanked her six-legged creatures with hardened exosuits, holding weapons shaped more like instruments than guns. A general stepped forward, flanked by advisors and a translator drone. The Queen spoke. "You have had 3 of your Earth rotations to comply. You have not." "Explain." The general cleared his throat. "We do not surrender as a species, we negotiate." Virellia tilted her head. "Negotiation implies parity. You have none." Everett couldn't help himself. He stepped forward. "Yeah, see, that's kind of the point. We're not good at taking orders. Even from ourselves. You're asking a planet full of stubborn, sleep-deprived caffeine addicts to just roll over because you said so." The general shot him a glare, but it was too late. Virellia turned her gaze directly on Everett. "You are not the leader." "Nope," Everett said. "Just the guy who's going to make your occupation a living nightmare." There was a pause. Then she spoke again. "You presume resistance will matter. Lady, I've seen people fight over Black Friday TVs. You try telling everyone they can't use the internet anymore." For a moment, Virellia was still. Then she raised one hand and pointed toward Everett. "That one, bring him." Everett blinked. "Wait, what?" 2 guards moved toward him. The general barked something, but the Queen ignored it. A shimmering field expanded around Everett. Then the world snapped out of focus. He awoke inside the ship. The chamber was sterile and dim, humming with energy. His arms and legs weren't bound, but the door was sealed. A moment later, it opened. Virellia entered alone. "You are representative of your kind's resistance." Everett sat up slowly on the platform that passed for a bed. "Not really. I just talk too much. You resist without strategy, without hierarchy, without unity. Welcome to Earth." She observed him a moment longer, then stepped closer. "In the Harken Empire, order is survival, chaos is death. We bring structure. And what if we prefer a little chaos? Then you will be extinguished." Everett nodded slowly. Right, I figured that was coming. Your world is inefficient, emotionally volatile, your species is fragmented. You lack the cohesion to resist. Maybe, but we're also unpredictable. You ever seen Florida? She ignored that. You will now assist us in facilitating planetary compliance. Everett stood, not gonna happen. There was a pause. Your refusal is illogical. You are not protected. You are alone, he smiled. That's where you're wrong. Over the next week, Virellia kept Everett aboard as a curiosity. He was questioned, scanned, monitored. She asked about human systems politics, supply chains, neural architecture. He answered honestly, sometimes sarcastically. But always with one clear theme. Humans don't always follow orders, even from other humans. Meanwhile, the world below ignited. In Paris, a mob of civilians hacked into the alien broadcast system and replaced it with a live feed of goats dancing in tutus. In Brazil, hackers rerouted one of the alien drones into a lake. In Kansas, a farmer chained his tractor to a scout ship and wouldn't let go until someone gave him back his cows. No single plan. No unified resistance. Just millions of humans doing what they did best, being inconvenient. Virellia watched it unfold from her command dais. They do not coordinate. They do not follow instruction. They cause collapse through randomness. Her second-in-command, Commander Threx, adjusted the tactical readout. Should we neutralize their communication infrastructure? They will use chalkboards and pigeons, or invent something worse. And their militias should we eradicate? They do not form traditional militias. One man threw a microwave at a scout unit. Another used fireworks as anti-air weapons. Unacceptable. Virellia turned to an image of Everett's interrogation room. He was doing push-ups on the floor. Bring him. He was escorted to her chamber again, sweat glistening on his brow. You are not a soldier, she said. Nope, and yet you endure captivity. I've been through worse. Try a 2-day bus ride from Phoenix to Chicago. You refuse to submit. No offense, but you started the whole thing with surrender or die. That doesn't leave much room for small talk. She studied him for a long time. You understand that your resistance is irrational. No, it's human. The next day, Everett was moved to a different room larger with access to a console. Virellia wanted him to help draft a surrender that Earth would accept. He refused. Instead, he began asking her questions. What's your planet like? Cold, structured, efficient. Sounds boring. It has ensured survival for 30,000 cycles. And in all that time, you never ran into someone who just did the opposite of what you told them. No. Well, welcome to Earth. He learned about her people. The Harken Empire had conquered 23 worlds. Each time they gave the same ultimatum. Each time it worked. Until now, she grew frustrated. Her ships could level cities. Her weapons could erase continents. But she couldn't make humans obey. She tried threats. Everett quoted protest slogans. She tried logic. He told jokes. She tried isolation. He made shadow puppets on the wall. She began to doubt. One evening, she asked him, what would it take for Earth to yield? He leaned forward. Trust, partnership, maybe a pizza, she stared. You cannot be serious. You want control. We want freedom. You want silence. We want noise. You want order. We want to dance in the chaos and maybe set something on fire along the way, but only a little. She turned away. Your species is ungovernable. Exactly. The next day, she initiated a planetary scan. It confirmed what Everett said. There was no central authority that could order a global surrender, no unified command. Even if she destroyed every government, the people would keep resisting in their own weird, disorganized, deeply human way. She stood before the Galactic Council via hologram. Earth is not a planet, it is a process, a never-ending engine of defiance. What is your recommendation? One counselor asked. Virellia hesitated. Withdraw, observe, prepare for long-term engagement. Conventional conquest is unviable. Everett was returned to Earth 3 days later. They dropped him in the desert, near the same trailer where it all started. He limped slightly. His knee had taken a bad twist during one of the ship's simulated restraint tests. A medic checked it. No break, just inflammation. Rest, ice, and elevation for at least a week. He sat in the shade, sipping warm water, watching the ships vanish into the sky. A young woman in uniform approached. You Everett Sloan, last I checked. General says the Queen left a message. "Oh yeah," she said, "your world is madness, but it is resilient," he chuckled. "Yeah. That's us. What now?" Everett looked toward the horizon. "We wait, we heal, we prepare, and next time, maybe we offer them a Snickers first." By the third morning after Everett was dropped off in the Mojave, the swelling in his knee had started to shift from sharp to dull. The medics stationed at Echo Niner had fashioned a makeshift compression wrap out of gauze and elastic tape, and a corporal from logistics brought him a salvaged camping cooler with partially melted ice packs. He'd been told to stay off it, elevate, and for the love of God, quit trying to jog around like it's nothing. He didn't jog, but he did spend most of his time on a folding chair under a tarp, watching a team of linguists argue with an alien probe the size of a dishwasher. "I don't think it's listening," said one of them, a balding man in a wrinkled NOAA windbreaker. "It keeps rerouting its output through nonverbal pulses." "It's a machine," replied the woman next to him. "It doesn't need to listen, it's collecting." "Collecting what?" "Everything. Radiation levels, heart rates, frequency of sarcasm, that kind of thing." Everett reached over and nudged the cooler open with his boot. "Bet it's regretting that last one." The probe pulsed again, 3 rapid flickers of violet light, followed by a low, rhythmic chirp that didn't quite fit any known pattern. It floated 3 feet off the ground, occasionally rotating on its vertical axis. A soldier tried to nudge it with the butt of his rifle once, and it responded by projecting a 3-dimensional model of his entire skeletal structure, highlighting an old hairline fracture in his collarbone. "Creepy little cube," Everett muttered. The probe turned slightly in his direction. Did it just know? Never mind. He leaned back and adjusted his leg on a second plastic chair. By the 6th day, the sky above the desert had cleared of any visible alien presence. The ships were gone at least from surface view, but the probes remained. Dozens of them, floating over cities, fields, coastlines. They didn't interfere with infrastructure. They didn't broadcast. They just watched. Everett was transferred to a debrief facility outside Albuquerque. The room they put him in was windowless, cool, and smelled faintly of bleach and plastic. A major in a graphite-colored uniform sat across the table, flanked by a civilian analyst with thick glasses and a tablet she never looked up from. The major started. "Any indication they plan to return?" Everett shrugged. "They never really left. The ships aren't in orbit. They don't need to be, they've got eyes everywhere." "Did the Queen mention a timeline? Any ultimatums?" "No, she asked about pizza and stared at the wall for 10 minutes. The analyst tapped something." "Psychological breakdown?" "No, just processing. Her empire's entire model runs on predictability. That doesn't work here." The major leaned forward slightly. "What do they want now?" Everett scratched the side of his jaw. "Observation. I think they're trying to understand how we haven't imploded yet. We nearly have, twice. Exactly. And yet, here we are." Later that afternoon, they brought him to the medical wing. His knee had stiffened during the flight, and the attending physician, a short woman with a buzz cut and a Boston accent, took one look and told him to lie down before he made it worse. "Ligaments are fine," she said, pressing gently along the joint. "But you've got inflammation in the bursa. That's why it's locking up. Feels like someone stuffed gravel in there." "Yeah, that tracks." She adjusted the portable ultrasound unit and scanned the area. "We'll drain the fluid, inject a corticosteroid, and you'll be walking like a grumpy librarian in no time." Comforting, she prepped the syringe. "Hold still, this part sucks." It did. Afterward, they gave him a compression brace and a list of exercises, none of which he intended to start before at least 2 full nights of sleep. 2 days later, the Queen's voice returned not through the skies this time, but via one of the probes. It floated into the Albuquerque compound unannounced, bypassed every electronic lock without triggering a single alarm, and stopped 6 inches from Everett's face while he was reading a copy of Popular Mechanics someone had left in the break room. "Everett Sloan," it said in her voice. He lowered the magazine. "Hey there, Your Majesty, miss me. We require your assistance." He blinked. "You're asking now? No, we are shifting methodology. Your planet's defiance is not contained within leadership structures. It is distributed, like mold or contagion, not the metaphor I'd pick, but go on. We wish to establish a dialogue with your distributed resistance. You will facilitate. He folded the magazine and set it aside. Okay, first off, it's not a resistance. People just don't like being told what to do. The outcome is the same. Probably. But if you want to talk to people, you're going to need more than floating cubes and royal declarations. Specify, start with music, food, memes. Something people can yell about online. That is not productive. Neither is broadcasting surrender demands in 37 languages and expecting no one to Photoshop them. The probe hovered silently for a moment, then rotated 90 degrees and projected a holographic interface, a swirling sphere of color and data streams. Everett recognized a few elements: social media timelines, surveillance feeds, facial recognition overlays, but most of it was unreadable. This is a cultural lexicon, Virellia said through the probe. We have compiled behavioral patterns. However, your species demonstrates contradictory impulses. Yeah, that's normal. You consume media depicting your own extinction for entertainment. Helps us process. You create tools for destruction, then repurpose them for recreation, paintball, and you assign emotional value to inanimate objects. Yeah, well. My toaster's been with me through a lot. She paused again. We do not understand your emotional resilience. You've never needed it. The probe dimmed slightly. Then, without warning, it projected a live image of a small craft descending toward a suburban neighborhood outside Portland. People in the footage scattered, some filming, some hiding, some waving with signs that read "Welcome aliens and take US to your leader," crossed out and rewritten to say "Take US to your Wi-Fi." What's happening? That ship contains an envoy. They are initiating cultural immersion. Everett stood. You're sending tourists. No, anthropologists. Can they handle sarcasm? They are trained in linguistic nuance. Not the same thing. The footage showed the envoy stepping out, a tall, thin being in layered metallic robes. A child approached and handed it a popsicle. The envoy accepted it, examined the melting sugar water on a stick, and attempted to eat the wooden part first. The feed cut. Everett pinched the bridge of his nose. Yeah. You're gonna need a lot more popsicles. Over the next week, similar envoy ships touched down in scattered locations: rural Canada, Inner Mongolia, a skate park in southern France. Each time they were met with a mix of confusion, curiosity, and complete disregard for formal proceedings. One envoy was challenged to a dance battle. Another had its translator stolen and replaced with a singing fish plaque. A third was offered a live chicken in what may or may not have been a religious rite. No one panicked, no one surrendered. By the end of the second week, Everett was back on his feet, moving with a slight limp but no longer wincing at stares. He was invited to a private debrief with the Department of Interstellar Relations, a newly formed agency occupying 2 floors of what used to be a Best Buy. They asked him one question. What do they want now? He answered. A crash course in being ignored. The chair of the department, a woman with a background in both diplomacy and stand-up comedy, frowned. Think we should be worried? Everett thought for a moment. No. Not while they're still trying to understand why someone gave their envoy a raccoon as a friendship token. Did they keep it? Oh yeah, named it Ambassador Claus. She exhaled and leaned back. Then maybe we've got a shot. The raccoon was wearing a vest. It was hand-sewn, made from what looked like a child's backpack, stitched together with colored zip ties. Across its back, in blocky permanent marker, someone had written Ambassador Claus in lopsided capitals. The animal sat on a small platform in the middle of the alien observation chamber, licking peanut butter off its paws, while 3 Harken researchers watched from behind a translucent barrier. One of them, a narrow-shouldered being with soft, bioluminescent ridges instead of facial features, tapped the glass gently. It ignores hierarchical structure, it said. Another leaned forward, eyes clicking as they adjusted focus. It hoards, it defends, it adapts. It displays no allegiance to species norms. The third tapped a console. We believe it is a key representative of the local behavioral framework. Everett sat behind them in an ergonomic chair far more comfortable than anything he'd had in the last 5 years. He rubbed his temples slowly. It's a raccoon. They dig through garbage and steal shiny things. That's it, the first alien turned. It has demonstrated strategic problem solving. It figured out how to open a cooler. That's not strategy, that's hunger. The raccoon sneezed. The second researcher tilted its head. It is valuable. I'm not saying it's not valuable. I'm saying you're going to be disappointed if you think it can explain humans. We are not studying humans, the first replied. We are studying Earth's dominant adaptive patterns. Everett sighed. Right. Virellia sent me here to help you understand people, and you've decided a raccoon in a vest is the best starting point. The lights in the room shifted briefly, signaling an incoming transmission. The researchers turned toward the wall as a holographic display unfurled, revealing Queen Virellia's image. She wore utilitarian gear this time, her ceremonial garb replaced with a sleek, matte uniform that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated capes. Progress report, she said without preamble. The lead researcher stepped forward. Subject displays opportunistic acquisition behavior and an indifference to social hierarchy. Subject, Everett said. He has a name. The Queen looked at him. Your species names objects. He's not an object. He's a raccoon diplomat. She didn't blink. Continue. The researcher gestured toward a second display, showing a series of charts. Following the subject's introduction, 7 separate urban communities have adopted local wildlife as informal emissaries. These include a goat, a 3-legged dog, and a pigeon with a bottle cap collection. Everett raised a hand. That one's real. The pigeon's got a following. Kids made it a tiny cardboard throne. Virellia stared at the data streams. Is this behavior typical? No, Everett said. But it's not unusual either. People will make meaning out of anything if it gives them a way to feel connected. She turned to him. Your culture is driven by projection. Well, yeah, we make mascots out of breakfast cereals. You think we're gonna ignore a raccoon in a vest? The Queen was silent for a moment. Then, the response is decentralized, yet it follows recognizable patterns. Everett stood slowly, adjusting the knee brace under his cargo pants. You wanted to understand why we don't follow orders. This is it. We don't respond to control. We respond to each other, to symbols, to stories. Stories, she repeated. Yeah, like the one where a bunch of aliens show up, demand surrender, and instead get pulled into a diplomatic standoff with a marsupial. Procyanidee, corrected one of the researchers. Whatever. The Queen's projection flickered briefly as she adjusted her focus. We have observed increasing degrees of conceptual improvisation. Your species invents new frameworks faster than we can catalog them. Because we don't wait. If something doesn't work, we try something else. Or we pretend it worked and keep going. Your history is defined by contradiction. Everett leaned against the observation console. You're not wrong, we're messy, but we're good at making sense out of mess. There was a pause. Then the Queen stepped down from the holographic platform, her image shrinking slightly as she moved. We have attempted to model compliance. It failed. We have attempted to model escalation. It destabilized. So maybe try something else. She looked at the raccoon. This ambassador clause has united factions through humor and absurdity. Exactly. He does not speak. Neither does half the internet. The Queen turned. We will consider a revised approach. That afternoon, Everett was cleared for return to civilian space. His medical file was updated, and the knee responded well to the injection. He was advised to continue low-impact movement, avoid uneven terrain, and wear the brace during long periods of walking. The attending medic gave him a list of exercises, including leg raises and quad sets, and told him to stop using vending machines as chairs. By the following week, the probes began broadcasting something new, not instructions, not surveillance data, clips. Short, curated segments of human life. A child learning to whistle, a street performer juggling flaming pins, a grandmother teaching her grandson to make dumplings. Each clip was projected in different locations, tailored by region. The aliens had stopped trying to command and started trying to understand. In response, humans began sending messages back not through official channels, but through tags, videos, street murals. Cities painted welcome signs in a dozen languages, including 2 fabricated alien ones. Someone built a statue of Ambassador Claus in a New Jersey parking lot out of traffic cones and spare bumpers. Everett was invited to a joint summit held in a converted high school gymnasium in Flagstaff. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old basketballs. Folding chairs were arranged in a circle. No podiums, no microphones, just people and aliens sitting eye level. Virellia attended in person. She wore an earth-made coat faux wool, repurposed from a thrift store, and listened more than she spoke. A Navajo elder explained how stories carried land. A Korean-American baker offered samples of rice cakes shaped like little moons. A teenager from Ohio read a poem about how the aliens reminded him of his cat. Aloof, judgmental, and deeply confused by peanut butter. When it was Everett's turn, he stood slowly, testing the knee. Still stiff but holding. "I know this didn't go how you planned," he said, looking at Virellia. "You came expecting protocols. We gave you chaos. You wanted order. We gave you memes." There was a chuckle from the crowd. "But that's the thing about Earth. We're not a puzzle to be solved. We're a song that keeps remixing itself. If you listen instead of trying to conduct, you might just find yourself dancing." The Queen inclined her head slightly. "Then we will listen." 3 days later, the last of the probes powered down their surveillance modes. They remained, but only as guests. The ships stayed out of orbit. The envoys were integrated into communities, some as researchers, others as volunteers. One began co-hosting a morning radio show in Milwaukee. Ambassador Claus was officially granted honorary citizenship in the state of Oregon. Everett returned to his trailer in Nevada. The desert was quiet again. He sat on his porch with a bag of frozen peas on his knee and a cup of instant coffee in his hand. The sky above was wide and empty. No ultimatums, no declarations. Just wind, sand, and the steady hum of a world still spinning, still laughing, still very much ungovernable. And finally understood.